You probably didn't see this coming, because it's not loud. It's not trending on the front page of your newsfeed, and it's not being broadcasted by the people who profit from division and fear. But it's happening right now in real time. Islam is rising, quietly, powerfully, and globally, and most of the world is too distracted to even notice. Now, I'm not here to sell you something, I'm here to show you something. Because when a global movement grows in strength, spreads across generations, races, and borders, without money, without marketing, without manipulation, we need to stop, look, and ask, what's going on? In 2025, Islam is not rising through politics, it's not rising through conquest, rising through hearts, through minds, through TikTok videos of 19-year-olds crying as they read the Quran for the first time, through university students who wake up for Fajr in dorm rooms, through women who walk away from hookup culture and walk into modesty and strength, and the world still clinging to the tired narrative that Islam is outdated, oppressive, or irrelevant. But here's the truth. The world is noisy, distracted, and overwhelmed. People are anxious, burned out, searching for meaning, and exhausted by consumerism and culture war. And in that chaos, Islam is quietly doing what it's always done, giving people a path back to God, with clarity, with structure, with purpose. This isn't just a religious movement, it's a psychological shift, a cultural turning point, a silent revolution of faith, and it's happening in cities, suburbs, prisons, podcasts, and coffee shops. And today, I'm going to walk you through it. Not through hype, not through opinion, through facts, through human stories, and through raw, honest truth. Because while the headlines are full of noise, the silent rise of Islam is the story nobody wants to talk about, but everybody needs to understand. Let's get into it. You might assume that religion is dying, that belief is outdated, that faith is fading in a world of science, technology, and modern thinking. But here's what nobody is telling you. In 2025, Islam is quietly growing, and it's growing in the places you'd least expect. I'm not just talking about traditionally Muslim countries, I'm talking about Europe, North America, Latin America, Japan, countries where Islam was once seen as foreign, fringe, or misunderstood. These are now the exact places where people are embracing Islam at unprecedented rates. They're not being forced, they're not being tricked, they're being awakened by the clarity, the discipline, the peace they've been searching for in a culture that promised everything and delivered almost nothing. Take the UK, for example. Islam is now the fastest growing religion there. And in Germany, in France, despite the headlines, despite political resistance, and despite the stereotypes, Islam is thriving. Why? Because when you strip away the noise, the essence of Islam speaks for itself. It gives people a sense of direction in a world full of confusion, a straight path in a time of endless choices. It teaches accountability, family, modesty, and purpose, values people crave in a world that has lost its grip on meaning. And the most powerful part, the majority of these new Muslims are women. That alone shocks people. Why would women in the West, who supposedly have it all, walk toward a faith that's been painted as oppressive? The answer is simple, because they're not falling for media caricatures anymore. They're reading the Quran for themselves. They're asking deeper questions. They're not judging Islam based on cultural baggage. They're discovering the raw, untouched core of the religion, and that core speaks to something deep inside them: dignity, protection, value, strength. It's not just women. Young people, Gen Z, are another group waking up. These are kids who grew up in the age of do what you want, and many of them are quietly saying, I don't want this anymore. They're tired of the anxiety, the identity crises, the endless scroll of shallow content. And when they find Islam, many of them describe it the same way, like finally finding home. Let's be clear, this rise isn't happening in mosques alone. It's happening in libraries, gyms, coffee shops, and college dorms. It's happening in private conversations and online live stream. It's happening in people's hearts, often without any outside pressure, just through genuine curiosity and personal reflection. Islam is spreading not through force, but through attraction. What makes this movement even more remarkable is its quietness. It's not dramatic, it's not flash, there's no PR machine behind it. But it's steady, it's consistent, and it's sincere. In a world where people change their opinions with every trending video, the fact that people are embracing a lifestyle that demands discipline, 5 prayers a day, fasting, hijab, modesty, no alcohol, no dating, should tell you something. That's not convenience, that's conviction. People don't convert to Islam for comfort. They convert because it answers questions the world refuses to face. Why am I here? What happens when I die? What's the purpose of my life? And when the answers finally come, grounded, simple, powerful, they change everything. So yes, Islam is rising, and it's rising in the most unexpected places. Not with noise, not with violence, but with quiet clarity. And in 2025, it's becoming impossible to ignore. For years, people said social media would destroy religion, that it would distract people from God, from faith, from anything deeper than a 10-second dopamine hit. But in 2025, that narrative is being turned on its head, because the very platforms designed to entertain and distract are now the platforms where people are discovering Islam, and not through institutions or polished campaigns, but through raw, unfiltered human truth. Scroll through TikTok or YouTube for just 10 minutes, and you'll find it, a former atheist breaking down in tears while reading Surah Maryam for the first time, a girl in London sharing her hijab journey, a reformed ex-partygoer explaining why he gave up drinking after his first Ramadan. These aren't sponsored, they're not rehearsed, they're real people, with real pain, finding real healing through Islam, and people are watching, in the millions. Social media, for all its chaos, has become a digital dawah machine. It's taken Islamic teachings out of the masjid, and into every phone in every pocket on earth. You no longer need to walk into a mosque to ask a question. You can search it on YouTube. You don't need to read a 1,000-page book to understand Tawheed. There's a 1-minute reel that explains it clearly and beautifully. For the first time, the barriers between Islam and the world are being broken down, not by scholars alone, but by everyday Muslims sharing their experiences and transformations in real time. And what's so powerful is how authentic it all is. These aren't perfect people preaching from pedestals. They're imperfect people on a journey. And that's what resonates. Someone struggling with anxiety finds a video about prayer and inner peace. A woman wrestling with self-worth stumbles across a post on how Islam honors and protects women. A teen overwhelmed by identity confusion sees a revert story and realizes, I'm not alone. These moments may seem small, but they're life-changing. We used to think that Islam was something you had to be born into, that it belonged to certain countries or ethnicities, but now, with a tap and a scroll, it's available to the whole world. It's accessible, it's personal, and for so many, it's the first time they've actually heard Islam on its own terms. Not through media spin, not through biased filters, but straight from the mouths of real Muslims, living real lives. The irony is, for decades, people tried to bury Islam with misinformation, but now in 2025 that attempt has backfired, because the internet doesn't just expose lies, it spreads truth faster than ever. One clip can cross continents, one testimony can reach a million ears, and when someone hears the adhan echoing through their screen and feels something shift inside, no algorithm can stop that, no ban, no shadow ban, no filter can erase what's already taking root in their soul. Islam's rise online isn't an accident, it's a response to a generation tired of fake spirituality and empty self-help, a generation tired of being told that truth doesn't exist. Islam enters that void and says, here it is, it's simple, it's logical, it's consistent, and it's been waiting for you. And thousands are responding, not with likes and comments, but with tears, with faith, and with shahadas. So no, social media didn't kill religion. In 2025 it amplified, it pulled back the curtain and revealed Islam for what it really is. Not a threat, not a trend, but a timeless truth, whose time has come again. If you want to understand the rise of Islam in 2025, look at the women, not just the ones born into the faith, but the ones choosing it on their own terms, with full knowledge, with full agency, because the truth is, Muslim women aren't being dragged into Islam, they're walking into it, boldly, proudly, and with more clarity than the world knows what to do with. In a time where society claims to be liberating women, we're watching an entirely different form of liberation unfold. You've got women leaving behind hyper-sexualized media, meaningless relationships, and the pressure to be everything to everyone. And instead they're choosing modesty, purpose, structure, and dignity, not because they're brainwashed, because they're awake, because the modern world's definition of freedom left them empty, and Islam gave them something deeper, a place to belong, a set of values to live by, and a God who sees their worth beyond their body. Women are leading this spiritual revolution, not just by converting but by educating, creating and building communities online and offline. They're giving lectures, writing books, creating podcasts, answering questions on Instagram lives. You have 21-year-old reverts explaining hijab with more depth and conviction than people twice their age. You've got Muslim therapists, scholars and influencers breaking down complex Islamic principles in ways that resonate across cultures. They're smart, they're articulate, and they're not waiting for permission to speak. They're speaking because they have something powerful to say, and that's what's shaking people up. The world keeps insisting that Islam oppresses women, but in 2025, women are the ones reviving it. Not in silence, not in the shadows, but with strength, visibility and confidence. They're wearing their hijab like armor, not chains. They're walking into spaces and owning their identity without apology, and that boldness is magnetic. It's drawing attention, it's shifting perspectives, it's making people stop and say, if this religion was oppressive, why do its women look so free? Even beyond reverts, Muslim-born women are stepping into their deen like never before. They're reconnecting with the Quran, they're pushing back against cultural baggage that tried to mix up Islam with control. They're learning the difference between man-made customs and divine command. And in that process, they're reclaiming their faith, not just as a tradition, but as a source of empowerment, because Islam, when understood properly, doesn't shrink women, it elevates them. And this is bigger than personal development, it's generational, because women shape households, they raise children, they influence families. So when a woman returns to Islam with strength and knowledge, she doesn't come alone. She brings her circle with her, she inspires her friends, she teaches her daughters, she transforms her home. That's what's happening behind the scenes. Quiet revolutions led by women who know exactly why they believe and exactly who they are. In 2025, the narrative has flipped. The question is no longer, why would a woman choose Islam? The real question is, why wouldn't she? When the world objectifies you, Islam honors you. When society confuses you, Islam gives you clarity. When culture tells you to chase everyone's approval, Islam says, just please your Creator. That message, pure, unchanging and unapologetically empowering, is the one echoing through women's hearts around the world. So if you're trying to understand why Islam is rising, stop looking at the noise and start looking at the women. They're not just part of the story. In many ways, they are the story. In 2025, people are realizing something that modern society has tried to bury under a mountain of distractions. Freedom without structure leads to chaos. You can't give people unlimited choices, remove all boundaries, and expect them to thrive. That's not how human beings work. We need direction, we crave discipline, we're wired for purpose. And while the modern world keeps offering band-aids, therapy apps, self-help books, mindfulness courses, Islam is quietly doing what all of that tries to do, but more powerfully, more holistically, and with far more clarity. Because let's be honest, we're in a crisis. Anxiety is through the roof, depression is normalized, people are addicted to their phones, scrolling endlessly, consuming content that leaves them emptier than when they started. There's an identity vacuum, no one knows who they are anymore, everything is fluid, everything is questioned. And in that fog, Islam steps in with a steady voice that says, you were created for a purpose, you have responsibilities, you have value, you are not random. That message cuts through the noise like a knife, and it's why people are listening. Islam doesn't offer a vague sense of spirituality, or a believe in yourself mantra. It offers a system, a lifestyle, a daily structure that aligns your actions with your values. 5 prayers a day, a month of fasting, boundaries in relationship, guidelines for how to earn, how to dress, how to treat others. It tells you how to live, not in a controlling way, but in a purposeful way. And that's the exact thing people have been missing in a world that teaches them to just follow your heart without ever explaining how to guard your heart. Take prayer for example. Muslims stop 5 times a day to reconnect with their Creator. Think about what that does to your mental state. You're unplugging, you're grounding yourself, you're reminding your soul of something bigger than bills, likes and deadlines. Now compare that to someone who hasn't paused all day, who's been on autopilot, drowning in dopamine spikes from social media, emails and stress. Who's calmer? Who's more centered? The answer is obvious. Even Islam's moral framework, which some people see as restrictive, is actually freeing. There's no guessing. You know what's right, you know what's wrong, you know where the line is. That might sound limiting to someone raised in a culture of do what you want, But boundaries are exactly what builds self-respect. You learn restraint, you learn patience, you build character, and suddenly you're not lost anymore. You have direction, you're anchored. People are starting to see that. They're starting to notice that the more free society becomes, the more broken people feel, and so they're turning to Islam, not because it matches their lifestyle, but because it corrects. It offers what the modern world can't: accountability, inner peace, and a connection to God that's not performative or trendy. It's real. And maybe that's why so many reverts say the same thing: I finally feel like I have a purpose, because Islam gives you a roadmap, a destination, and most importantly, a reason to get out of bed in the morning that's bigger than chasing money or validation. That's not just religion, that's healing. So in a world that's spinning faster and making less sense by the day, Islam is quietly offering the one thing everyone is missing: structure with soul. And in 2025, more people than ever are choosing it, not because they were forced to, but because it gave them the peace they were searching for all along. There's something powerful happening in 2025 that the media isn't showing you. While politics keeps trying to divide us, and headlines keep pushing fear, Islam is quietly uniting people across every possible line: race, age, class, background, you name it. This isn't a movement of one culture. It's not Arab, it's not South Asian, it's not African, it's not one color or country. It's global, and what makes it so unique is that it's diverse, but completely united under one core belief: La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, one God, one message, one Ummah. Every Friday, millions of people gather for Jumu'ah prayers in every corner of the world, and if you walk into a mosque in London, or Toronto, or Cape Town, or Jakarta, you'll see it for yourself: white, black, Asian, Latino, rich, poor, students, CEOs, all standing shoulder to shoulder facing the same Qibla, reciting the same verses. No VIP section, no caste system, no skin privilege, just unity. Where else do you find that? Where else does a complete stranger hug you after prayer like your family, simply because you both said so? In a world obsessed with identity politics, where people are reduced to labels, Islam breaks through with a radically different idea: you are more than your gender, race, or status. You are a servant of God, and that equal footing is what so many people are starving for. Because deep down, we all want to belong, we all want to be part of something real, something bigger than us, and Islam gives people that. Not just a sense of community, but a family, one that stretches across continents, languages, and time zones. And this unity isn't superficial. It's not based on shared hobbies or shallow trends. It's rooted in something much deeper: shared values. Muslims around the world are connected by the same prayer schedule, the same month of Ramadan, the same love for the Prophet. You could be in Istanbul or Indianapolis, and if you hear someone recite the Quran, it hits your heart the same way. That shared experience is bonding people in a way that no social club or movement ever could. Reverts often talk about how lonely they were before Islam, how they felt invisible in a sea of people chasing pleasure but starving spiritually. And then they embraced Islam and suddenly found themselves surrounded by strangers who treated them like siblings. That's not a coincidence. That's what happens when a faith doesn't just preach unity, but builds it into every pillar of practice, from charity to pilgrimage. Islam is designed to strip away ego and status and reconnect us all to each other through God. And in a time where trust is breaking down, in governments, in institutions, even in families, people are looking for something that feels real, something that doesn't divide them based on income or appearance. And they're finding that in Islam. They're seeing that this faith doesn't just guide the individual, it strengthens the collective. It tells you to care for your neighbor, to love for your brother what you love for yourself, to stand for justice even against yourself. That kind of unity, it's rare, and it's magnetic. People are drawn to it. They want to be part of something that gives them both spiritual depth and a strong support system, and that's exactly what Islam offers, no matter where you're from or what your past looked like. In 2025, that unshakable unity is becoming impossible to ignore, and it's one of the reasons why Islam isn't just surviving, it's thriving. One of the most remarkable shifts happening in 2025 is how people are beginning to strip away the noise and go straight to the source. They're not listening to biased news, outdated assumptions, or cultural baggage anymore. They're picking up the Quran for themselves. They're reading the Hadith, they're watching lectures, they're engaging with Islam directly, and what they're finding isn't what they expected. It's not restriction, it's truth, clarity, peace, and unmatched consistency. The more they study, the more they realize Islam makes sense. This is especially true for reverts. You'll hear it in their stories again and again. They were searching, not for religion necessarily, but for real answers, about the meaning of life, about what comes after death, about why we suffer, about how to live a moral life in a collapsing moral world. And when they stumbled across Islam, whether by accident or curiosity, the answers hit them hard, not emotional fluff, not vague spirituality, but logical, grounded, actionable truth. And that changed everything. Because here's the thing, Islam doesn't hide behind mystery. It doesn't claim that only the elite or the clergy can access God. It lays out the blueprint of life clearly: who created you, why you're here, what your responsibilities are, what's expected of you, what brings blessings, what brings destruction. And it does this with a level of consistency and clarity that modern life can't compete with. No contradictions, no confusion, just truth, preserved for over 1400 years, untouched, unchanged, unbroken. People are waking up to that. They're realizing that everything they were told Islam was oppressive, backward, violent, is the exact opposite of what Islam actually teaches. When they read the Quran with an open mind, they don't find darkness, they find light, they find mercy, they find a religion that honors knowledge, commands justice, protects the rights of the poor, values women, and builds strong, healthy societies. And they realize they've been lied to. This is what's fueling the silent rise. People aren't converting because someone debated them into it. They're converting because the truth of Islam, when encountered sincerely, is undeniable. It resonates. It's not trendy or emotional. It's deeply true. It speaks to both the heart and the intellect. It provides a framework that doesn't collapse under scrutiny, that stands strong no matter how many times you question it. That's rare in this world, and people are holding on to it with both hands. And it's not just new Muslims who are waking up. Born Muslims are reawakening too. Young people raised in Muslim homes but disconnected from their faith are now reconnecting, not out of guilt, but out of discovery. They're asking their own questions. They're learning the meanings of the prayers they memorized as kids. They're watching Islamic scholars explain the logic behind every aspect of the deen, from why we pray to why we fast, to why we dress modestly. And when they understand it, it finally clicks. It finally becomes theirs. So this rise, it's not loud, it's not aggressive, it's authentic. It's driven by people who have taken the time to study and reflect, people who have stopped listening to the world and started listening to God. And that kind of transformation, slow, quiet, deeply rooted, is the most powerful kind of all. In 2025, the more people study Islam sincerely, the more they embrace it, not because of pressure, not because of hype, but because the truth is standing right in front of them, and they can't So here we are, in 2025, a world where the loudest voices often say the least, and the most meaningful revolutions happen in silence. While the headlines distract us with division and fear, something far more profound is unfolding quietly, globally and steadily. The rise of Islam, and not the rise people expect, not forced, not violent, not political, but the rise of truth, of peace, of purpose. It's happening through people, real people, people who scroll through TikTok, expecting entertainment and instead find the core. People who once felt empty in a life of so-called freedom, and now feel full because they discovered structure, discipline, and meaning. People who were raised Muslim but finally understand it, and people who had never heard of Islam until one video, one verse, one prayer opened their heart. It's women stepping into the deen with confidence, not submission to men but submission to God. It's communities forming across continents, with no common language but the language of faith. It's people turning away from chaos and finding peace in prostration. It's millions of individuals, one by one, choosing a way of life that offers clarity in confusion, light in darkness, and unity in division. And let me say this as clearly as I can. This isn't a wave, it's not a fade, it's a quiet revolution, rooted in truth. And truth doesn't need noise to win. Truth doesn't need permission, it just needs to be seen. And in 2025, it's being seen like never before. So if you're watching this, if you're wondering why Islam is rising, look deeper, look past the look at the lives being changed, the peace being found, the unity being built, and the questions being answered. You'll see that Islam isn't rising because it's being forced. It's rising because hearts are ready, minds are open, and people are searching, not for more distractions, But for direction, the silent rise of Islam, it's not so silent anymore, and it's only just beginning.